Try that again, because Casey says that he couldn't see me. But we are live because two people had already joined. So and it's coming up here, then person started a live video. So hopefully we'll get this show on the road. Wow, why is it just weird in here? That is weird. So is it me or is it now brighter? That is weird. Hey, there he is there. Old Casey himself. Alright, governor. Sent your invite. Accept it. You have got it. Now waiting for Greg as well. Hopefully the TurboDork has seen that we've went live. And the Inquisition is now going live with Penge. Why are you wearing a blue? Why are you wearing blue tonight, Casey? I thought you'd be wearing your palace top.
Good evening, mate.
How are you, mate?
Been wearing this all day and it stinks of sweat, so I can't be asked to change into something new and make that stink of sweat.
Yeah, you're lucky we don't have that sniffometer they have in Futurama, because nobody would want to be sniffing near Peterborough right now, because you'd be smelling Casey and Casey only.
Well, apparently if you used it on Dunk, you'd smell the dog that just appeared.
That's Isa, the one that eats poo.
Stop eating poo, you stinky shit.
Oh, she's not eaten it for a good long time now, haven't we? We've went cold turkey, so... Will you be keeping an eye on the game? Oh, there's TurboDork, yay! Will you be keeping an eye on the game?
Yeah, got a stream ready to go in the background. I'm not expecting anything out tonight. It's bomb squad midfield. So let's just give them the 3 points, so it means Arsenal don't win. Hello, guest.
Hello, Greg. How are you doing?
Hello, guest. I like that.
Hi, guys. I am so happy that you actually wear glasses, because I took a punt on your profile picture, and it could have went either way, that you were wearing sunglasses or you're wearing actual glasses. So, yeah,
fair.
Thank God for that. How are you doing, Greg?
Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're good, man. Yeah, thanks very much for coming on with us tonight. It must be, what time are you in? Is it California you're based, Greg?
Used to be. We're out of Texas now, so it's only like 1:30 in the afternoon, so it's just after lunch for us.
Oh, happy days. And what better way to get out of doing some work than chatting to two absolute idiots and a black dog on hump day of all days. So, might as well just jump in. The first question that we ask every guest is, what age were you when you got into Warhammer? What was your first mini? And who got you addicted to it? So it's kind of 3 questions in one.
Yeah, the multi-question.
Yeah.
Fair. Oh, man. I've been in the hobby since I think I was 8. So my mom and dad are nerds. My dad got me into Warhammer Fantasy. 3rd edition? I can't remember which edition it was in like 1992, 93, but I remember it was a big red box, and I had he played orcs, so my mom painted all the orcs and goblins. I eventually moved to 40K and then got Gretchen. But my mom painted all the orcs and stuff for my dad, and then I was painting the like high elves and stuff. And I don't remember my first miniature, but I remember the first miniature I screwed up, which was I had a high elf spearman and had a can of Games Workshop white primer, and I didn't shake it enough. And we lived in New Hampshire, and it was during the winter, and I remember just spraying basically like plaster across all of them, like wet mud, and just completely ruining the first unit of stuff that I was working on, and then having to start over. So thankfully it didn't discourage me, and I've stayed in the hobby since. But yeah, so
I like that. It's not the first thing you remember painting; it's the first thing you remember ruining. I think we might have to steal that, Dung. Because what's the first thing you ever ruined?
Yeah, we steal a lot of things on the Inquisition, so if you haven't got it trademarked by 8 p.m. Eastern time, you're done.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so I've been in the hobby kind of for a while. I mean, I think a lot of us, I went off college and stuff, and I didn't play for a few years, and then I got back in like 2017, 2018 when I started TurboDork. So I took
what was it that got you back into it then at that time?
Honestly, so my career prior to this, I'm not a chemist, nothing like that. Like I was a commercial photographer working in Los Angeles. Very lucky to be doing like entertainment stuff, like celebrity portraiture and fashion and stuff like that. Like living the life, but the life was also quite stressful. And my friend Victor and Glenn and got me back into. I think it was eighth edition 40K brought me back, and it was like it was a nice at the time simple rules system, and I liked painting. Yeah, I've always liked painting. My mom has still had been painting for like the last 30 years. And if you ever look at our social media and I ever mention Mama Dork, that's my mom, and she's 73 and still painting. And so it was one of those things, like it was just like my de-stressor. And that's pretty much what brought me into the hobby. I didn't even really play. I think I think since 2018 I've maybe played like 4 games of 40K. I'm more of a Necromunda kind of guy, but so yeah, that was basically it. Like, it's fun painting, and it's fun, having something that's not your day-to-day job that you can kind of come home and relax with.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
So we've got a question from Tablet Ryan. What's your favourite Games Workshop edition or game?
Ooh, okay. That's a very good question. I actually really enjoy the new Necromunda. I mean, I played the original Necromunda back in the 90s with my dad, and I liked the terrain and whatnot from that, and the lore, and the minis were of that time where they were kind of comically bad. But they're what we had, right? The new stuff now, like the new Necromunda, is so fleshed out and like customizable. Like it's truly a skirmish game mixed with an RPG, and then the freedom to model and do whatever you want in terms of painting and kit bashing. And I really like that in it. Um, I'll be honest, I just can't keep up with 40K these days. Stuff moves so quick. I feel like I blink and I've missed a new release. It's like a kind of a treadmill. I love it for the lore, like I think the Black Library does an amazing job of building out the world, and I've always been a fan of anything that Dan Abnett has written. So yeah, but favorite game, Necromunda, probably. I can't remember which edition it is. It's not 17. I gotta Google this one. Whatever the new Necromunda was called.
Well, that leads us on to a question from Commissar Molotov. So, which Necromunda gang is your favourite, or what do you collect?
I collect all of them. I have a problem with that. I literally buy every book. I buy every mini for Necromunda, because it's one of those things too where it's like if you don't grab it, you don't know when you can get it again. But I play Cawdor, Vansar, and Escher. My Cawdor are pretty much all flamers running around like with wrenches and stuff, and um, I like the melee aspect of it more so than the shooting, because I like trying to kind of maneuver around and stuff. I'm not good at it, but I enjoy it. So,
I,
yeah.
that's pretty much all of us with any sort of game system. We like doing it, but we're not any
Right. I mean, right, fair. I don't think I've won a game in probably 10 years of anything that I've played, but I enjoy doing
I'm not alone, yes.
it.
Yeah, it's like when you're playing like Elden Ring or Dark Souls, like it's a game that you have to learn. But I'm that stubborn, I'll just continually keep doing the same attacks. I don't learn anything, it's just the same. And if I try and do a different build, like go a mage build or a thief build, I always end up just going back to the strongest and biggest weapon I can find. But,
I mean, oh man, Dark Souls. Like, I think it was Dark Souls 3, whatever came out on Xbox, like maybe 10 years ago. And I bought that. I was super excited to play it. I couldn't even get past the tutorial boss, and I was like, I mean, I'm a decent first person shooter gamer. Like I used to, that was like my thing, right? Like Call of Duty and whatnot. But like I could not figure out the timing of landing hits and stuff in Dark Souls, and the idea that like everything reset every time you died too. And like I think now, 10, 15 years later, I kind of get the concept of that game, but I was just not good enough to do it. I had to get good, and I could not get good.
so we've got a few more questions in the chat just
Yep.
about Necromunda. Like, we've got one from Commissar Molotov saying, "What's your favourite Dan Abnett novel or series, and why is it Eisenhorn?" We've got Tablet Ryan asking again, what's your gang of choice in Necromunda? And then we've got the Green Mank asking, have you tried a 4 to 6 player Necromunda game? It's carnage, apparently.
So it is actually his Eisenhorn. Well, the Eisenhorn and the Ravenor omnibuses. Like I think I reread those every year. Honestly, I know them like the back of my hand at this point. I love those books. And the Gaunt's Ghost, but there's a lot more of them, so it took a little while to work my way through those. I have done a 4-player Necromunda game. We did kind of a 4-player, like, we used to be in a Sunday group and we play every Sunday. And, like, kind of the end of our season, we did a 4-player versus sort of zombies holdout kind of thing where we had to rescue. We were kind of fighting each other and then we had to kind of like extract away from the zombie, like, kind of plague thing off of a ship. And it was one of the most memorable games we've ever played, honestly. I don't think my guys made it, if I'm being honest, to extract, but it was fun. And I missed the third question. It was something about Commander. Or second question.
I think the third question was again your gang of choice, but you mentioned that in one of the earlier ones. The chat has actually lit up tonight about Necromunda, which I have not seen it do with us for donkeys. Usually the first 10 to 20 minutes, trying to get the chat involved in anything on this show is like, please get involved, please do something. You're watching us, and tonight they're just on us. So Walkgate Studios has asked us a pay question, so I will come to him in a second, but there is a couple more follow-up questions with respect to Necromunda. What has been your favourite Necromunda miniature?
Ooh, I think the old school Mad Donna sculpt. I have a real soft spot for the metal stuff from the '90s, and especially where it's the poses. I'm not going to be able to fit it in. Like the poses are kind of flat, right?
Yeah.
But Mad Donna was really cool back in the day. I like the Cawdor stuff too. The way they sculpted the kind of, I hate to say skirts because it was a bunch of guys too, but like the kind of squared off edges to their like tunics and stuff was really memorable. There was a heavy stubber dude that I remember quite well from that, as well as some of the Spire. I think it's the oh man, I'm forgetting the name of the Spire guys. He had big fists. I don't remember. Oris? Something like that?
Yeah. The Aura Spire is the one with the huge armor, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then they redid him.
Redeemer?
Brackar the Redeemer. I don't remember Brackar the Redeemer. Let me Google him real quick.
So while you're Googling that then, another quick follow-up question from Green Mank about Necromunda. Not Green Mank, sorry, Tablet Ryan. With respect to the broken aspects of it, do you engage in a few little house rules here and there to help you out?
I remember us house ruling too much. We never really used tactics a whole lot. I didn't like the idea of the tactics cards because you could just, well, the one time Jeremy, who was our store manager back in LA, well, he still is the store manager. I'm just not there anymore. But like, we used tactics in one game, and I think I got turn one deleted where like one of my guys turned out to be a traitor. Another one got his head blown off by a rocket launcher. It was like, okay, I guess I'm done. It was the most memorable game ever. Was like this horrible loss, but it was like the one time I remember using tactic cards, and I did not like it.
Fair enough.
That's the only main house rule. I think the house rule in Necromunda should be whatever you guys feel is fun, right? Like,
yeah.
I think games should be more customized for your play group and your pod and that kind of thing. If everybody really likes WYSIWYG and everybody wants to have magnetized weapons and stuff like that, go for it. If you want to be super loose and it's just you can use gumballs and whatever to be your characters, that's fine too. Like I remember one of my first games back playing 40K in 2017, I think it was 2018. I love Tyranids. I couldn't afford to buy all the Tyranids I wanted, so I think my Zoanthrope was a bottle of primer that I was pushing around on the table. So it's like, or Malanthrope, sorry. Too many things to keep track of.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like when you see the Australian guy doing like proxies. He's like making a proxy box of Weetabix for a night. It's like,
yeah.
Why not?
3D printing has completely changed that world, right? At this point, proxies now are as good or almost better, and it's like I'm seeing that happen in like the Trench Crusade world where I really happen to like, I think they're called the Red Brigade, where I think that those models happen to look better than the official sculpts. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's amazing, because it's unleashed a whole realm of creativity and more artists into this industry. There's some aspect, commercially of like, is that cool or not? I mean, Trench Crusade's cool with it, thankfully, but like, is 40K and the people who play 40K cool with that many kind of proxies? I don't know. At least the
It
40K
just,
sculpts are good on their own.
I feel like with the proxies though, you can make your army your own if you, as long as it still has the same base and the same height. I wouldn't see a problem as long as you know. Like, you want your armies to be individual as much as you can. So I don't see why. I totally get proxies. You know what I mean? That's like, if we couldn't do that, we couldn't do kit bashing and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, at what point is it? It's like Theseus's ship. It's like, at what point is it a kit bash versus a proxy?
Yeah.
And like, ultimately, I think it comes down to effort level, right? It's like, as long as you put effort into it and you seem like you care a reasonably amount about the game and being serious about it, I think it's fine, right? Like, if you want to have a whole team, and actually our friend Sean, who played in Necromunda, he had, I'm forgetting the name of the group, the butcher dudes that it came out. He hand sculpted
Yes.
like pig faces for everybody, so everybody looked like
Ooh.
they were wearing like pig
Yeah.
masks, and like that was awesome. He never got a chance to paint him, but the amount of work that went into it was just mind blowing.
I remember seeing those, and they did look quality because there was this really weird budget horror movie over here in the UK where it was this random village in the middle of nowhere, but all the villains were wearing like pig masks, and it really
Yeah.
stuck out for that. It was those were quality conversions. I know exactly the ones you're talking about.
Yep.
Um, but and it's also really the second time I've heard the ship of Theseus mentioned today. It's like in my brain all the time now. But it is a very good.
You
It's
need
a
all
very
that.
good point. It is, at what point does a 3D print or a kit bash just become its own thing? And there is no harm in it, I think, in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But that's me. So you mentioned there, Greg, sorry, that before we got derailed with all the Necromunda, and we'll bring it back on topic for a little bit, that you had a big old break before you got TurboDork off the ground. With respect to Wargate Studios questions, which I'll come to, what was the driving force? What behind TurboDork? What made you sit there think one day, I'm going to make some paint?
uh if I'm being fully honest, Turbodor kind of happened by accident. I'm an artist by trade, and I was, a full time artist for 15 years. I I was lucky enough to live near an art store, and I wanted to start a Emperor's Children army, and basically that metallic purple paint that they use in all of the flavor art is just doesn't exist or didn't exist at the time. And so I was starting to mess around with, I'd go over to Craftsman Art Supply and I'd buy stuff every week, and I'd come home and I'd start mixing, stuff in my kitchen sink. And I kind of like taught myself how to make paint for about 6 months, and um, finally got a color I really liked. And in theory, I could have just stopped and painted my army and whatnot. And I was like, well, this is something that hasn't really existed before. I wonder if people would be interested in it. And so I asked my wife, hey, do you think we could make something out of this? Like, if I came up with some more colors, do you think people would buy it? And she was like, don't quit your day job, but and she is now our CEO. So we've both quit our day jobs to do this now. But yeah, I basically plugged away on it for the rest of that summer, and then in like late August in 2018, put it online. We had 16 colors, and we were just very lucky. It was at a time when social media was, a little easier to get traction with, or a lot easier to get traction with.
Yeah.
And my friend Ross tweeted about us, and distributors saw that tweet, and about 12 hours after we started the company, we had distribution lined up. And
Wow.
so it's just been off to the races, and I joke almost every day that we're kind of building the bridge as we cross it, where it's there wasn't a game plan originally. I think we've kind of figured things out as we've gone, but it was really like I honestly thought like my mom would buy some paint and some of her friends would buy some paint, and maybe I could buy a few, maybe I could afford those Tyranids finally, that kind of thing. And it just exploded. Um, And then we lucked out during COVID too. I mean, to some extent,
Mm.
because everyone was at home painting, so we kind of quadrupled in size during COVID. But yeah, it was not. It was more just like a an artist messing around with some paints, came up with something he liked, and kind of found a niche, that didn't exist.
Sure. So I've mentioned him a couple of times. If I don't ask this question, he'll scream at me. Currently, now then, with respect to this, what Walkgo Studios wanted to know is how much time do you now spend on the R&D process? I mean, you originally said it was like playing around for 6 months before you found something that you were happy with. Do you feel that you've got that nailed down and the process is much more streamlined now, or is it still like anywhere like
You
six
know,
months or longer?
we're getting into a little inside baseball here, but the process is actually a little slower now. And the reason is we have so many colors. We have 80 colors right now, and there's this literal physical limit to kind of like different variations we can do with shifts. And so there's only so many different color combinations we can put together. And a lot of them end up being blue and purple, or like kind of meaty red and an orange, like I've made like 18 different ground as lavas at this point. Um, so it's been hard to innovate on that.
Yeah.
But we do have 20 new colors coming, hopefully around September, and we've been working on those for about 2 years now. And it's one of those other things too where we've grown up as a company and learning about the production process that we actually have to like let samples marinate for 3 to 6 months, and we have to put them through forced aging to make sure that they're going to last on the shelf and that kind of thing. Because we actually had an incident 4 years ago, where one of our colors, Rainbow Roll, because one of the anti-freezing agents we used actually basically bleached Rainbow Roll, and like after 3 months of sitting on the shelf, it was just gone. You just had like clear medium. And that was something that we found out like a week or two before we started shipping off to stores, and thankfully we were able to fix it. But now we've built in this extra kind of like R&D time so that it's much slower to come out with products, but now we know when they come out, they're new, unique, and they'll work.
Yeah.
We were definitely a lot faster and looser back in the day. Let's just say that. But now we have 5 people and an actual warehouse and like payrolls and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's new things that we get to think about, not just Meredith and I in a loft in LA with some cats. So, but yeah.
It's interesting though, because you even saying there, I don't think that's something that your average hobbyist gives much time to of thinking about. Like, if you're leaving something on the shelf for a couple of months, what happens to the consistency of it in there? Like, even you mentioning that one of the bits in the rainbow roll just wiped everything else out. It's something that I think hobbyists take for granted. So opportunities like this to actually speak to someone who makes paint is
Mhm.
amazing for us. We've had guests on in the past who have raved about your products. Green Mank in there, he owns a shop and he's saying that he loves supplying them. Again, Walkgo Studio said that your addition of the mediums changed how he paints. So it's lovely to see this feedback live, if you see what I mean. It's one thing when you
Right?
it's nice when you see a review of a product and you're not sure what you're getting, because that's always a good thing for your average disconcerting hobbyist. But when it's in the flesh and people are like wanting to share their good stories, it's always lovely to see.
I love going to conventions for that because I actually get to talk to the community and kind of otherwise it's just Meredith and I kind of toiling away in our warehouse here, right? Like it's a very isolated area where we live now, and it's nice to go to a show like Adepticon or Gen Con and be able to like talk and get feedback immediately too, which is invaluable. But yeah, it's interesting kind of looking at it as a business and as the paint side of things, because it's like 90 something percent of our industry, and I mean our industry as in paint making, is about making house paint, like which they call architectural paint. And so all of the tech in our industry is guaranteed or is guided towards putting paint on your walls. And it's the hobby industry is very, very unique because it's like we want something that's very bright. Generally, we want it to cover in one coat. We want it to last forever. House paint is not meant to freeze. It's not meant to last for more than a year. It's meant to be used and go up and it's done. So we have a lot of really interesting constraints on us in the hobby industry that the rest of the industry of polymer coatings doesn't deal with. Um, I actually went to Cal Poly to not get a degree, but to go back and get some more training in terms of organic chemistry. And all of the teachers there were fascinated with me because I was like the only person not just going off to go make house paint, you know? So it was like, wait, you want to know about color? I'm like, yeah, I want to know about color. Like, how do you make the brightest yellow? You know, like that's what my wife Meredith has been working on, our new line of stuff, which I can't technically talk about, but it's going to have some very, very bright colors in it. And it's hard to do that. It's very expensive to get bright.
Well,
But
I'm just going to jump in here with a question, so I'm going to forget it if I don't ask.
yep, go.
So, like, you only do paints. Now, we've got established companies like AK and Green Stuff World who do not just paints, who do brushes. And the likes of Duncan Rhodes has come out. How hard was it for you to break into a market? Because, like, and no disrespect, like, you weren't known. You're just like Davy Johnson down the road to, like, buy my paints. How, and was it because of the metallic colour shift? Was that what your USP was?
We very much lucked out into having this niche that nobody else really did, which was the metallics and the shifts. Since we've come out, Vallejo just came out with their true metallic metal line, I think 6 months ago. Green Stuff World has their shifts. Technically, they were first, I think. And then Vallejo has some shifts as well. I think we've just been very lucky to be sort of, and we're US based, which all the other guys are, EU. And then we just made it our specialty, so it's like all we do. So here's the whole palette. And it was just the right place at the right time, and nobody had really done it before. But conversely, it is now tough because we need to move into, competing with other people. So we are working on our own brush line, which is going to launch in a couple months. And we're making very high quality synthetic brushes that I don't think anybody else is really going that route. And so we're trying to take it's like I think they call it the blue ocean theory, which is like, try to make a thing that nobody else has. And so it's tough, right? Because like we're in the golden age of our hobby right now. We have 70 different paint lines you can choose from. So it's like, why would you choose our paint line? And the answer for the regular TurboDork stuff is the fact that like we're the only people making those colors and they're sparkly. So it's like we've gotten a subset there. But if we're going to make normal paints or if we're going to make paint brushes, what sets us apart? And that is, it's a tough nut to crack in some cases.
And do you find that an advantage with the sparkly paints, as you called it, because it attracts to more than just miniatures. So, like, there's a French guy that lives down the road from me, and all he does is miniature cars.
Mhm.
So, and do you find that you get a lot of business from out with the tabletop community and other more niche hobbies that we wouldn't necessarily think of?
I think we're getting more traction in that, like where, surprisingly, people who paint fishing lures, that's like a really big new market for us. And it makes sense because like fish are iridescent, or some fish are iridescent, and they want to paint something that's shiny and sparkly and catches the attention of the fish and also kind of looks like the fish that the guy would eat, right? And so fishing lures have been big, scale model cars, die cast, like the Hot Wheels customizing crews have been using it, Gundam. Um, the harder part is, I just don't know those worlds very well. So it's like I don't know how to speak to the stores and the influencers and the people in that market in quite the same way I do, miniatures tabletop stuff. So it's been kind of self-propagating, and very lucky that, yeah, it's like, how do I phrase it? Like, are paint's at least interesting to see and talk about, right? Like, I think a lot of regular paint, it's paint, right? Uh, People want to show off TurboDork stuff because it's sparkling and it's cool, and then people find it and it's unique and different. Um, and again, that wasn't planned. That we've just kind of embraced and fallen into, our role with that, right? But yeah, it's like I get to go to stores and like one of the coolest feedback things I've heard from retailers is that like somebody will come in and find a paint color and then they'll go find the miniature or the model to put it on. And that doesn't usually happen. It kind of goes the other way, right? Like you're
Yeah,
just trying to paint something to the box art. Here it's like, oh no, I really like this sparkly blue. Let me go find a, space marine from StarCraft to go paint, that kind of thing. So I don't
yeah.
know. It's been an interesting turn on its head, kind of thing.
Yeah, because you made,
Very,
as you said, you made it for your Emperor's Children arms, so you're automatically thinking Space Marines and Tyranids and stuff. But then it was only when I was looking through like Instagram, you see like sparkling metallics, and like I think Green Monk said there like a Toyota Celica or
yep.
some Honda CR2 or something. So
I mean, somebody painted a KitchenAid mixer in Miami Sunset, and it's like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And like, I want that KitchenAid mixer. Like, the sky's the limit, right? Like, there's a artist in Korea that painted a whole wall of a department store in 4D glasses, and it is beautiful, and it must be mind bending to see it in person. But yeah,
I mean, as an artist, how does that feel knowing that people like something that you've made that you've got into accidentally? You're probably going to be more recognised for your paints and maybe some of your pictures that you took. How does that feel?
it's funny. I think it's actually a lot easier to quote unquote sell TurboDork and the look of that art, that people have been making than myself. I enjoyed my work, like freelancing life, but I was never one at being able to be like, I'm the guy you got to hire. I can do this thing for you. Like, it's just not my personality. But I can talk about TurboDork all day long, and I'm happy to promote TurboDork as this thing. Um, yeah, it's been interesting. I'll be honest, I don't get to be directly creative very often anymore. But I get to kind of vicariously live through everybody who's sharing images and stuff, and so that's been really cool. Um, yeah, just different, like a different play on creativity than I'm used to, but I've been enjoying it.
Yeah.
So the question that we asked everybody, the question that we asked you is like, what is your like Mount Everest model that you would love to paint, but you just don't have like maybe the skills or the confidence to do it? What I'm going to ask you, I'm going to kind of slightly turn that to paint. What's been the one colour that you've always wanted to try and mix and it just hasn't worked yet?
It's a good one.
Yeah, so that's a really good one. So I'm not gonna let the cat out of the bag because I've kind of given up on this and I feel bad, but it's just not gonna happen for the miniatures based hobby as a water based acrylic. So I've been working on glow in the dark paints for 5+ years. There's a particular issue where this is going to get very technical, and I apologize.
Yeah, go for it.
Good glow in the dark paint. That mineral is called strontium aluminate. Strontium aluminate degrades in water, so you can't put it in a water-based medium without it eventually kind of evaporating away. You can encapsulate strontium aluminate in a carrier medium. However, then it doesn't glow very well. So you can make a water-based paint that doesn't glow great, or you can have a non-water-based paint that does glow well. But I don't like dealing with all the other solvents and stuff. I wanted to make water-based paints. There was a particular variation of the glow-in-the-dark pigment that it would look white during the daytime, but then glow a vibrant red at night. And I thought my dream was to paint a bunch of Skaven eyes, and you would see them during the day. They would just be like white eyeballs, and then at night you'd see all these little rat dudes with glowing red eyes. That was my dream, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to figure it out. The stuff works if you mix it and you do it immediately. It just can't be in the water for more than a day or two without it just dying. And the alternative might be we sell some medium and some powders, and you kind of mix it to go. The other thing is glow in the dark paint. It's a very, very high grind, or not high grind, large molecule. And so it kind of looks gritty over large surfaces, and it's just not pleasing to work with. It's like painting with sandy paint. But like, I wanted that effect. That's my Mount Everest effect that I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get. My Mount Everest model is still those Emperor's Children, which I have not painted since 8 years later. The entire point of the company was to paint these guys metallic purple, and I never actually got to do it. So, yeah.
I'm going to jump in quick before Don goes there. Like, I know very little about chemistry, but I do know the word strontium for obvious connotations of the nuclear industry and radiation and stuff like that. And obviously, I remember reading a story years ago about how original glow-in-the-dark watches were painted using radium.
Radium, yep.
which is, you looking back on it, that sounds mental. But I take it there is no actual, you just, the word strontium is just there to sort of reflect of what it is, and we're not actually painting with radioactive stuff.
No, it's one of those things where it's like it's just the root word of kind of the full molecule.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not like it's strontium like uranium or that kind of thing. It's yeah, thankfully. I mean,
yeah.
it's in that family because it is it's something that absorbs light and then re-emits it,
Hmm.
right? So like the reason why white clothing is white is in general, a lot of times because they have brighteners in them that are actually like fluorescent white pigments that are absorbing sunlight and re-emitting
Mm.
it. So if you're ever under a black light and you see somebody's clothing glowing, it's because it's got optical brighteners in it, that kind of thing. We generally avoid those in the paint industry, but in the fluorescence world, that does start to come into play. But yeah, so it's not thankfully radioactive.
Cool.
In the going to screw you up sense. Strontium dog. Oh my god.
It's
Would
just one of those
alcohol
things.
work?
It is just
Yeah.
proper one of those things, isn't it? You hear, you sort of, when you watch too much YouTube of Chernobyl and stuff like that, and you hear
Hmm.
certain words, you're thinking, hang on, what the hell?
Yeah, right. You ever watch Kyle Hill and all of his stuff about
Some of them, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm
all of those
fascinated
little
by that.
things, like all of these worst case scenario shows, and you hear something like that. But yeah, there we go. But even for us, as I said like earlier, with respect to having someone on who knows their stuff, who's able to break stuff down for us and tell us about how things work, because a layman hobbyist just looks at a paint and thinks, that's a cool color, that's a good technique, that's something that
Yep.
works quite well. We don't engage our brain in the actual what goes into it. So it is just nice. It's lovely to hear this stuff.
And I'm honestly hoping to keep it that way, right? Like I don't want people to have to worry about how to learn how to do a whole new technique or something. I want to make stuff as easy as possible. I look at stuff as kind of a user experience and like how do I make that user experience easier, for people because I want you to just be able to pick up paint and hobby and not have to think about it. Like I just want to make a cool thing. I want to slap this paint on it and I want it to be cool. I don't want to have to go watch five YouTube tutorials on how to do it.
Yeah,
I just want to be creative in the moment. That's how I work, I should say. And I kind of want to present that to people too. Like take away the gatekeeping, take away or not even the gatekeeping, but the like, the knowledge barrier of stuff
yeah,
and reduce that.
yeah,
Um
definitely.
Maybe get Mr. Internet back on saying you need a signature Wattgate colour shift. You don't. Nobody needs that. Uh, have you
Yeah,
ever
go
like? I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. Have you ever like dabbled in trying to make like crackle metallic paint? So like people like trying to get that
hmm,
lava effect, like a kind of twinkly, like kind of
that could
crackle
be
paint.
cool. Yeah, I've messed around with the crackle stuff. Crackle's interesting because you're basically relying upon screwing the paint up. You're trying to make a paint that doesn't adhere very well. So you're trying to make something a slippy bottom surface that then it pulls and does the mud cracking thing. Um, it's possible. I couldn't see why not. I actually went the other way, which is when we formulated our acrylics, I made them super elastic, and they have a very strong film formation. The reason being is I wanted people to put them over things that are flexible as well. And that's kind of the antithesis of the crackle. You want crackle to be like kind of fragile, like delicate paint. But in theory, the same pigment should work in there. I would just have to make a new base.
And just when you mentioned like earlier on about your wife saying don't give up your day job, at what point did you both know that it was time to go full time into this? Was it a gradual process, or was it just like overnight you went, we have to just quit everything and do this now?
So it was actually relatively gradual. I went full time doing this in December of 2019, kind of right before the pandemic. It was at that point where I had three guys working for me out of this like Burning Man artist warehouse thing that we rented in downtown LA. And I was still taking photo jobs and they were making paint. And then I'd sit there for an entire day and I'd label bottles by hand in our loft. And then Meredith would be shipping them. And Meredith still had her career too in the entertainment industry, and it just got to be a lot. And so I quit taking. I still took an occasional job here and there in terms of photography. It was if it was decent, but it was it was paying for itself, and we were making a decent bit of money. And then the pandemic hit, and then Meredith's entertainment thing, like she was an entertainment reporter, and so she couldn't really go out to do interviews and cover events and stuff, and so she just naturally kind of transitioned into TurboDork. um and she was CEO of Steve Jackson Games for 2 years, and then she came back to work on our new big R&D thing that I can't talk about yet. but
There's a lot of things you're not
that is her
allowed to
magnum
talk about.
opus. It's so it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a small industry, and everyone knows each other, especially in the paint world. Like I'm friends with all the people who at Vallejo and Army Painter and Monument and Cuttlefish and Reaper. So like we all talk, we all hang out at conventions, we're all on good terms. But it's one of those things. If I let an idea out too soon, I'm worried that somebody could iterate on it quicker.
Yep.
And it's funny because not and they did not copy us. They didn't do any of this. I'm not accusing them of Monument. We've had very, very parallel thinking on a lot of things that we've done. I had an idea for years to do little kind of 2D, 3D printed or sculpted things for learning how to paint different things. Like, it would just be a bunch of different shoulder pads. It would be wood textures, and I was going to call them texture trainers. And then they came out with a product that was almost the exact same thing called texture trainers. I feel like even if I have a thought, somehow it's going to like go out into the world. So
Yeah.
we're just, we rely upon kind of being the like scrappy underdogs that can kind of do things in a different way than other people, but we don't have a lot of resources to be able to push the stuff forward really quickly. So
Yeah.
I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on certain things until, okay, we've bought all the ingredients, we're actually in production, and now we're soliciting sales from people.
Sure.
And it's frustrating because I would love to talk about stuff a lot quicker, but we just, because it's just five of us and it's a family business, we don't have the plan to be able to like put that stuff in motion. It
Yeah.
sucks.
I mean, it's hard enough. We've had people on who have like YouTube, and that's what they do as their thing, or various other little bits online. And I think, especially in the hobby industry as a whole, it's a very saturated market for such a niche thing. And
Yes.
as you've sort of highlighted there, when you are just almost the one-man band doing everything yourself and trying to get everything sorted, and then you've got a company that's got a bit more money and a bit more people behind it that are able to drop a whole project there because they've heard that you're doing this and that sounds cool and they want to jump on that bandwagon too. It does feel like there is a lot of that sort of stuff going on. The contrast market, I think, is another one that, someone released a one coat paint and the next minute they're all doing it.
Mm-hmm. I happen to really like all that one step stuff, right? Or I think Monument called theirs one step. Whatever you call it, one coat,
Yeah.
one speed paint, contrast, antithesis. I'm trying to remember everybody's names for it, right? Like
I can do that. We'll be here all day.
but honestly, like slap chop and the contrast stuff really changed how people paint, and I do it a lot too. Like I love the look of that stuff, and it's fun because it's almost like, this is going to sound denigrating, but it's not, but like adult paint by numbers, where it's an easy process in which you can get something that looks good on the tabletop. And I think it made sense for everybody to try to capitalize on it. And we decided to not do that because everybody else was doing it,
Yeah.
like, I think it is cool that, like, not to talk about other competitors, but I think Monument finally did it and they're doing it in their own way, right?
Yeah.
A lot of other people just feels like they were kind of copying Citadel, and maybe doing it too quickly. But they got there eventually. But I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. It's like I don't want to just do what everybody else does. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But then it's the other problem though is like, what do I do that's different? Or what do we do that's different?
Yeah, that's
again,
got to be that's definitely something I noticed with respect to your product line as a whole, with the shimmer paints and everything. You have gone in there and you've just perfectly cornered. This is different. That's what we'll go with. And I think for such a small company, sometimes you sit there and think, or maybe we should follow a trend, maybe we should go with what everyone else is doing? Or is it just a case of, here's our brand vision, this is what we want to do, and that's what we're sticking with?
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like following the trends may make sense more as a business option, but we just don't have the resources to do it. It's quick enough, right? It's like, you know, again, to pull back the veil, it's like the stupid stuff you got to learn when you're doing this is like material sourcing. It's like, okay, where am I getting my bottles from? Where am I getting my pigment from? Where am I getting my medium from? Where am
Yeah.
I getting my labels from? How quickly can I get those in? How quickly can I iterate on something? And like, contrast paints use inks essentially as the pigments, not regular dry pigments.
Mhm.
So then I got to find an ink manufacturer, and then I got to like, it's like, oh god, it really compounds from that, and to some extent for us, it's a lot of just kind of bandwidth and like what can we fit into the day. Um, but I think the stuff we are coming out with is very, very unique, and it is a very new take on the industry. And I can't wait to talk about it when we can. We just started sending some samples out to friends, like under friend DAs, so to speak. And that's the first time I think we've talked about it publicly with anybody other than Meredith and I. So, but it's her baby, so you might get
Yeah.
her on to talk to you guys when the time comes.
Oh, definitely, definitely bring her on, and we can chat about this new thing that you're doing. It sounds brilliant.
It's even nice just to have a tease of something, when guys come on and
Yeah.
we chat to them, it's nice that, then we get an understanding of, we've got stuff in the works that we want to talk about, you're doing. It's lovely that you're still going for it and you're still trying to push the boundary. I think that's always really nice to hear.
Yeah, like we've got some really nice stuff coming in the near future, which is like we have a new primer that's going to come out that it works amazing for hand brush and for airbrush. You literally just slap it on and it shrinks itself onto the model. Partially because I want to get people away from using rattle cans. I don't think rattle cans make a whole lot of sense for miniatures. And that might be an artifact of the fact that I screwed that one, high elf spearman up, 30 years ago. Um, but our primers are going to be amazing. They're coming at the end of the summer with the other 20 new colors. Our brushes are really nice. We wanted to make something that's like affordable workhorse brushes that work for everybody. They're also slightly different shapes, so they're more ergonomic. Um, it's just trying to look at like how can we turn things a little bit on their head, and not just do the same thing as everybody else. But at least we can that stuff we can talk about at least,
Yeah.
and I can literally send you guys stuff soon.
So I just want to bring it back to the primer conversation,
Yep.
because it was just we've not because we don't really talk about primer. So why do you think that primers don't suit models then? And
Rattle
why is
can.
your
Yeah.
and why is your primer going to be different from normal rattle cans?
What was the first part of the question?
Why do you think that rattle cans aren't suitable for miniatures?
Oh, um, it's mostly a scale issue for me. Something like an airbrush is very, very easy to control when you're applying layers and things like that. The amount of pressure that goes into a rattle can is just personally way too high for the small surface area in which you're trying to hit with the primer.
Okay.
Now they have formulated it better in the sense that rattle can primers kind of do that shrink wrap thing too. Um, I also just don't like the idea, and this is for me kind of trying to be a little bit of a green hippie, of blowing all these accelerants out into the air if we don't have to. I also really don't like overspray. Realistically, you should be putting on a mask because the more you learn about these chemicals, the more you definitely do not want to be breathing them in. So I think if you can achieve something that is the same with a brush on primer like our stuff is in about the same amount of time without having to have any overspray and without having to have any kind of volatile chemicals, I think that is going to be a preferable method.
I mean
It is going
that.
to
Sorry.
No, I just say it's a little bit of a rethink for a lot of people, but
Would
um,
you then be able to spray the can inside the house? And just like a lot, especially here in the UK, we have like really bad heat. We don't even have seasons. It's just one long winter, so that stops us from maybe spraying outside. But with
right.
these primers, would you be able to spray inside then?
They're not going to be rattle cans. Sorry, they're either brush on or airbrush. So
Right.
it's the one goo you can use both ways. And the idea there too is like we have like Canada above us, right? Canada gets down to like -50 C.
Yeah.
There's times when you definitely cannot be airbrushing or rattle canning, um, even indoors, honestly. And the idea is that this is kind of a year-round primer that can work well for people. And because of the way that it works, you can really just slap it on the miniature really quick with like a big mop brush. Um, I think that the actual amount of time priming is very, very similar to the prep work and then trying to do the rattle can stuff. Um, they're very equivalent and just very different methods to put stuff on there. I don't know. It'll make more sense when you see it, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
One of those.
it is making sense what you're saying. I mean, especially when you think about there's the point that you raised that we go outside, we spray. A lot of us are just in the open air, so we're not wearing face coverings. And also, how much of the paint are we spraying is actually hitting the mini, and how much of it's going off into the atmosphere? So I think they're
A lot.
yeah, they're perfectly reasonable points. Because I take it for granted. I go outside, don't bother covering up, and I'm like, spray it all, get it done. And maybe 20% of the paint I'm spraying hits the mini because I'm just
Right.
going at it. So it has made me think about that for definite. And
I also think rattle cans, I mean, yeah, there's like out here we have Krylon, right, which is like maybe $5 a can. So it's a pretty cheap option for people. GW I think is 20, maybe $24 a can now. It's
yeah,
expensive. And you're not really maximizing what you can out of that. You can prime with like a $15 bottle of our primer, infinitely more stuff because you're not just priming the piece of cardboard behind the thing, or you're not
yeah,
priming your back porch, like, you're not priming your lungs. I remember back in the day, like, I used to be really into bicycling, and I built my own custom road bike, and I painted it on my back porch, and I put a little plastic booth up and stuff, and I didn't have any safety gear. And I remember coming out of there and I was completely black, and I literally just had to go lay down on the couch and like pass out because I had like huffed so many CFCs and stuff in that like half an hour period. Um, so yeah, I think a lot of maybe TurboDork is being influenced by past mistakes I've made, but yeah, I just rattle canning just it feels too macro, for what we're doing. Like it's too big, Like I think airbrushing is a great way to prime. I think brushing is a great way to prime. Most brush on primers are not good. So that's the big problem there. Because obviously, the nice thing about rattle canning is you just hose it on and the guy's done, right?
yeah.
So I want something that feels like that and is easy to use as well.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
you've been in the hobby for quite a while as well, Casey. I'm relatively new, like 5 or 6 years. Is the rattle can the only thing that's not really changed since you started then?
I'd say rattle canning and the glues. Glue's obviously glue, isn't it? That's never really going to change at all. I'd say the quality of the paint in the cans has gotten a lot better over the years for definite. Because as Greg said, back in the day, that original white spray from Games Workshop, Jesus, if you got it right and it came out, you were over the moon. But the fumes off of it as well, because back in the day, those GW paints were not nice to work with sometimes. So I'd say, and as well with so many different companies offering it, and people are just going down to their car shop, the car repair stores and buying cans of stuff from there rather than going into manufacturers like hobby suppliers even. I think the market's changed as a whole. People are identifying what else is out there for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, the quality of it has changed a lot for definite. And yeah,
GW really got a lot better with when contrast came out. Their cans got better. Color Forge, which you guys have access
yeah,
to. I guess we do too now. That really changed the game. Most of the time people out here are just using like stuff from the hardware store.
yeah,
They're just using a black or a white. And it's fine.
Mm.
I just I feel like it could be better.
yeah, but yeah,
But it
and
has been the standard for 30 plus years, at least.
that
That's pretty much how people do it.
yeah, I think that's the thing. Is that standard has been around for so long. I love that you're coming up with an alternative. I think that's brilliant because it's a like you say, it's about bucking the trend a little bit and saying, why don't you try something new? Um,
Hmm.
and I just wish we could do that with glues that I don't open and get instantly high off because the fumes are ridiculous. But maybe we'll
I
get there
love
one day with
plastic
them.
glue. Yeah, I love plastic glue, but that shit is rough.
Yeah.
Eh,
Glues have gotten better though too.
Mm.
Back in the day, the Citadel plastic glue was terrible in the
It's
90s.
horrendous.
But then now, I mean, mostly use like Tamiya extra thin now.
Yeah.
And that stuff is miracle glue. Like you can sculpt with it. You can like just touch it to the model and it sucks its way into the joint. I mean, that stuff is amazing. And then the stuff will never come apart again, good or bad.
Yeah.
I switched, if we're going to talk glues, I switched for super glues to just getting those little individual packets, the like
Yeah.
whatever third of a gram packets, because I always had the big super glue bottles and then I could never get the lid off of them and stuff like that. So I just gave up on that. So I just use the disposable guys and I go through them kind of more often than I
Yeah.
should. But
They work. That's the
yeah,
thing, though. If it works and it's
they
cheap, why
work.
not?
Uh-huh.
I actually bought Gorilla super glue gel last week.
Yeah.
Actually, quite decent.
Yeah.
I swear by gel glues. Yeah. The Gorilla Glue is great. I use Crazy Glue. It's a brand here.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, the gel versus the regular liquid is much preferable. Um, and then if you get the accelerant, we have, I think it's Bob Smith Industries here. I don't know what you guys have for
Oh, yeah.
like the accelerant stuff. My tip for that is I found I take the bottle off and instead of spraying it on, I just tap the bottom of the little tube from the bottle onto the joint and then it just sucks in and does that. As opposed to hosing the whole thing down with whatever that nasty chemical is.
Yep.
I haven't looked into it, but it is not
It's
tasty.
no, it's not. It's not at all.
Right,
It's the reason they use.
I'm just gonna bring us off topic for a wee bit, and just because we've warmed you up with asking about yourself and asking about TurboDork. Now we're going to ask you the real questions. When you and Meredith like to sit back and relax on a Saturday or Sunday evening in Texas, what is your chip and drink of choice, alcoholic and non-alcoholic?
Chip and drink?
Yeah.
Crisps, chips.
Oh, that kind of chip. Okay, yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, wait, your kind of chip? I'm like, I
No,
like
no,
French
No, no,
fries.
no, 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 not an English chip, an American chip.
Yeah.
English?
All right.
Yeah, right. I mean, salt and vinegar chips. We actually have here in Texas, um, we have HEBs, which are our regular grocery stores, and then we have a slightly nicer version called Central Market that is kind of a competitor to Whole Foods. Central Market has a line of chips that they make that are just amazing. And they change out the flavors all the time. So like they'll have like a smoked Gouda one or like a hatch green chili. Um, I actually really like weird chips. Like we'll go to H Mart, which is our Korean market, and they'll be like, "Oh, here's like a lamb and cumin flavor chip from
Ooh.
Lay's." Like all these different Lay's potato chips that you can get from different countries,
Yeah.
like the Chinese ones or the Thai ones. I love kind of trying all those different experience flavors. Um, but just straight up salt and vinegar chips are gonna be like always hit. In terms of drink, I don't drink a lot, uh, nearly as much as I used to. I used to be kind of a goth club kid, and I'd go out like 3 nights a week, and I've kind of gotten too old for that. It used to be like 4 Long Island iced teas a night, and I was good. Now it's like one drink and I'm down, I'm broken. But um, I've been enjoying old fashions these days. I also really like super peaty scotches. And then like weird sour beers. Um, we have a brewery out here called Jester King that specializes in sour beer, and it's just amazing. They also have like a whole herd of goats, so you can like go out, hang out on like what is a very Texas ranch, watch these goats roaming around, and you can drink sour beer. Um, so it's kind of a fun local experience.
And do you have a soda of choice?
Oh, soda. I'm an old school root beer kind of guy. Yeah, like IBC root beer is what I grew up on, or Barks. Um, yeah, there's also a company out here called Maine Root. that makes really nice like natural sodas. So you can get like a root beer or a cream soda or like an orange creamsicle soda from them, and they're really good. And they're often on tap at like our local restaurants.
Sweet.
Uh, Birch beer is good too if you can ever find it. I feel like that was easier to find when I was a kid. Yeah.
So we've gone into your snacks and your drinks of choice. When you are not turbo-dorking and you are not hobbying, what is it that you guys do to relax on an evening? You watching films, reading books, podcasting? What are you up to?
What is relaxing? I don't really know. I joke that I traded a day job for a day and night job. Sometimes with that, like being small business owners is tough. It's like you're kind of on call all the time. Like we had
Yeah.
a phone call at 7:45 our evening time last night with Australia with a new Australian distributor, and like you know, um, I'm often have weird hours for that. To more directly answer your question, I'm actually genuinely trying to figure out what to do to relax because so much of my life has been TurboDork, and now we have a great crew at the office, and I don't have to do the day-to-day paint making. I don't have to do the order packing. I do a lot of it still, but I don't technically have to. And so I'm trying to figure out like what do I do with free time that that I find enjoyable, and it's tough. I'm actually looking into getting back into like playing Infinity. Meredith and I have been playing a lot of different card games. Like I just taught her Magic the Gathering over the weekend.
Okay.
That one of those things that like she just had never played. And so it was like, hey, come into this other addictive hobby, just like 40K, that also costs thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So I tend to play actually most of the time on the weekends. Every morning with my dad, we play some sort of card game online, and it had been Magic. It was Keyforge for a while. It was Altered. I think we're going to move into Riftbound, but I do a lot of like TCGs with my dad. My own hobbying, I bought too much of that StarCraft game that's about to come out.
Oh yeah.
Because I was almost a professional StarCraft player back in the day. So I love that IP. And I'm going to be painting up a bunch of Marines and Zerg. Um, but yeah, we also happen to really like this TV show called Highway Through Hell, which is heavy rescue tow truck drivers on the Coquihalla Highway in Canada. So
Oh,
imagine semi trucks sliding off of a mountain in the winter and then being pulled out of the ravine by big tow trucks. It's what we like. Dude, I don't know why.
I think you get to a certain age where things that you find your dad watching, you end up watching yourself. Like I love Deadliest Catch, and I absolutely love Gold Rush. Like
Yeah.
I just love watching like these guys. But obviously it's fake. A lot of it's fake. Like, but when you like watching people, you like over the last 10 years, you feel like you've grown up with them a wee bit.
I wish I could be in the deadliest. Like I kind of had this feeling that like maybe in a different alternative life, I hadn't met Meredith, I was gonna go become like a crab fisherman because I liked the idea that I could work really really hard for 3 months and then not do anything for 9 months. Because the entertainment industry was a little like that. Like I would work 10 or 20 days in a row on like 14 to 20 hour days, but then I would make 10 grand and then I'd be good for a month or two, and I kind of liked this cycle of work versus play. Life is a little more just even now, which is actually hard for me to get used to. But yeah, I think TV wise, we definitely, it's like that joke about you always listen to the same music you listened to in college. I think to some extent, you kind of go back to your roots with TV that like your parents were watching. Yeah, my parents like nature documentaries, and I haven't really gotten into that, but everything else we sync up on.
Yeah, I used to love ice road truckers back in the day as well.
Yeah.
Like that was just insane. It's like here's this person who's got to drive like 500 kilometers across the Arctic to drop something off to an oil rig that can only do it now that the ice is frozen. And it must be the most boring job ever just to drive around in the snow. But they always made it feel so dramatic. It's like,
They really did. The way they edited it felt
yeah,
very much like you're on edge as they're driving at 20 miles per hour very slowly for
yeah,
20 hours straight. I think you would like it. I honestly think you'd like Highway Through Hell. It's on Netflix.
I'm sold.
It's genuinely pretty entertaining, and for people who like kind of building things and I'm assuming you guys are of the same mindset of like kind of liking engineering problems or problem solving. Everything is them problem solving, but it's them on big trucks, and it's like very manly men, and in the winter of Canada, so it's harsh conditions, and I don't know. I just like it.
And then you start fantasizing on, I could definitely do that job. But
Yeah.
then,
Yeah,
and then you go and try and like defrost your car. You're like, oh, I couldn't do that job.
Oh my God. Okay, so it doesn't really get cold here in Texas, which is something I miss.
oh, show off.
But we'll get like a winter. We'll get like 1 week of winter every year. And a couple of years ago, when I first moved here, I forgot how to. Well, I also lived in California, which didn't have winter, but I forgot how to defrost a windshield. And so I was just like banging on it and scraping it with the scraper, and I actually cracked the windshield of my old van like a couple of years ago. And I was like, "Well, that was not the way to do that."
So,
So
I,
yeah.
so I just want to ask you, like, why did you move from California to Texas? Was it like logistics for TurboDork, or was it you just wanted to go where there's more tigers in captivity than there are in
Right.
nature?
Oh my God, the our local dump, where our trash landfill or whatever has all these signs for the fact that the people who own it have like a wildlife preserve of like elephants and tigers and stuff, but it's all just like some dude's collection. It's super weird to me. No, the it's an interesting thing that we ended up here in Texas. And it was multi-layered. Meredith had come out here. One of my mentors in the photo industry is a man named Dan Winters. And if you look him up, it's like danwintersphoto.com. And he is probably one of the top 10 photographers in the world. Very, very good friend. He's photographed basically every celebrity under the sun. And he lived out here. And so we would come out here on the reg and visit him. And he actually cast Meredith in a movie. And she was out here filming for 2 years, kind of his magnum opus, personal like sci-fi epic. And she fell in love with this area, and we put our name down to build a home. And cut to 2 years later, and this was in 2021, I think, so kind of mid-pandemic. Um, that crazy artist warehouse that I had told you about, our landlord. This is a multi-layered thing. I'll have to send you a video of like. There's literally a video explaining this because there were a bunch of us that lost our workspaces. But basically, I don't even know how to make this story short. Oh my God, it's just gonna be weird.
No, you're great.
Um, the person we were renting our space from for this big warehouse turned out to not actually be the owner of the warehouse. He faked his own death in like December of 2021 to get away from
Jesus.
uh, his ex-wife or something like that. And then he came back 3 months later, changed the locks on the building with armed guards. And he's like, "Hey, Greg, don't worry. I'm gonna Robin Hood the building away from its slumlord owners, and we're gonna make a crypto coin that's like the warehouse coin, and like you can pay me in this crypto coin, and then like I don't have to report it." It was like, oh, okay. I literally rented a storage unit and emptied TurboDork into it in like a day, and was like, okay, I guess we're finding a new artist or a new office. 2 days later, that was a Friday afternoon. 2 days later on Sunday, we got a phone call from the people out here. They're like, "Hey, your name's on, the list is through, and you're up next. Like, do you want to build a home?" And so we're like, "Well, I guess we're moving to Texas." So we packed up our entire lives, and about 3 weeks later, we lived out here, and we rented a home in the same neighborhood so we could like watch them build our house, which I thought was kind of cool. And then we moved in about 3 years ago to this home. But that's it mainly. It actually ended up working out really well for TurboDork. Our new warehouse is only a 3-minute drive. You actually at the time you could actually see it from our house, and now they've built new homes in between. Um, and being centrally located in Texas has worked really, really well for like shipping times to people. The only problem is literally an 8 hour drive just to leave Texas to get
Yeah.
to any convention. So every convention we go to is a minimum of 2 day drive. So, uh, you know, we're
That sounds
centrally
that
located, but
sou-
only so central.
that sounds like a Netflix documentary in the making. That landlord. That
Yeah.
that sounds like its own Netflix documentary.
There's a woodworker who he makes stuff out of skateboards, and he was in the same building, and he has a 10-minute thing on YouTube of like him talking about what happened with us losing our office space. It was crazy. I'll look it up and send it to you guys
Oh,
because
definitely. I'll
Yeah.
need to watch that
it's
tomorrow.
almost, I'm forgetting a whole bunch of the details. Like the guy ended up in jail, and like it kept going and going, and it was like it was it was perfect. It was great, and then he just went crazy, and it was like, well, guess we're leaving. There was actually another company called Prism Lens FX. They do really, really cool filters to go on cameras and stuff to make interesting prismatic effects. And they were out of the same place, and they also moved to Texas, and they've grown a lot since. And um, I just remember all at once we were all like, okay, I guess what had been status quo for us is now going to change, and now we've got to figure out a way around this. And it was tough. We didn't make paint for 2 months. We had to find a new office. We had to like, I think it cost something like $20,000 to move all of our stuff out here. Like it was rough. And then also like, now we're in Texas. It's a very different world out here in Texas. And I'm not gonna even go into the politics because that's not what we do here, right? But like
Yeah.
uh adjusting from California to Texas has been interesting. Um,
Mm.
but the people out here are super nice, and the food out here is great, especially if you like barbecue. Um, which another Netflix thing we got into was like there was like a barbecue cook-off show that we got
Oh
into
yeah,
right
I've
before
seen
we
that.
moved here.
I've seen
Yeah.
that on YouTube.
Um, and so we got a Traeger, so now I smoke meat once in a while, and I get to be like the Texan out here. My best friend's a gunsmith, so
Of
it
course.
happens.
And like you're talking about conventions and how it's like a 2 day drive. Are you going to come to any ones in Europe?
So we're looking at, I think our first European convention is going to be Essen this year.
Mm.
So we just got picked up by PK Pro. They're out of Germany, and they make, if you've ever seen Kraut Cover,
Yeah.
they distribute them, and they distribute Monument in the EU and stuff. And so we're going to go to that. We were hoping to do UKGE this year. Um, in the UK, we're distributed by Warhub or the Outpost and the Color Forge guys. But they just didn't have enough space for us. Like we asked too late. So we're trying to work out a way to come over there because your convention seems a little smaller than ours, or a lot smaller, I think.
Yeah.
Because you mostly have like Salute and UKGE, right? And then maybe Bring Out Your Lead. I don't know if that's still around.
Yeah, bring out your lead still around. The convention space, I'd say, in the UK is definitely something that's getting bigger. It's not quite there yet, and I don't think it ever will be to the scale of like it is in America, simply because obviously in America, conventions have been a big thing forever. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think in the UK, they've always been very niche trade things that have only just started now. The public are starting to wake up and realize, oh, we can go to this too. It doesn't just have, if I like cameras, I can go to a camera convention. It doesn't just have to be people from Kodak selling to shops. But it's definitely been a much slower process there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the convention world out here is like, it is robust. I mean, there's almost a convention every weekend now for some. If you're in a particular subgroup or subgenre hobby, there's enough stuff you can go do all the time for it. Like the board game world, we have what, 3 or 4 different PAXs. We have got 3 different opens, right? We got Nova Open, Las Vegas Open, Texas Open. Man, there's so much to do out here, and I feel like unfortunately, but also your market's very different too. I correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't been to the UK in a while, when it wasn't for work, but I think everybody kind of grows up playing Warhammer, right, to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything else is a bit of an afterthought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's all the Warhammer branded stores, there's all the community stores, but the concept of a friendly local gaming store is also just different with you guys too, right? Like it's more like club based, and and that
Yeah,
kind of thing, or more like Garage Hammer, less so like out here where even in just Austin, we have five huge wargaming stores, where it's, 6,000 square feet with 20 different tables and all the
yeah.
miniatures and painting areas and stuff like that. So,
I'd also
uh,
say for the UK market, we take things like that for granted because in a lot of stuff, like towns are smaller, we're obviously a much smaller place, everything's a bit more on top of each other. So when you've got someone who might live in London saying, "Oh, we've got an event up in Birmingham, do you want to come to it?" You look at that and think, "That's 100 miles. Do I really want to give up 100 miles on a weekend?" Whereas for yourselves, especially in Texas, that's an average journey to maybe your nearest hobby shop, if you know that is
for some
what.
people, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the UK market take those things for granted a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think that's again something that we're sort of wake up and realize actually it's good to do these things.
So we've got Ian McMinnies. Congratulations to Ian and his wife. They had a wee baby girl a few months ago with some
Uh,
mental Irish name. So Irish names don't really have vowels. It's usually an S,
yeah.
an A, and then just consonants vomited at them. But Ian McMinnies says, I'd advise against salute. UKGE is really supposed to be great. Is that the 2 day one, Casey? UKG
UKGE is the one in Birmingham that's 3 days.
3 days.
They do it across the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Salute is a bit more of a weirder, intense Saturday only thing. So I think for a known brand like yourself with TurboDork, you might find a bit of better footing than like a smaller independent might at something like that. But then to get the full flavour, a big 3 day event is probably more worth your time coming over for.
Yeah, like out here, pretty much everything's three, and then some shows are like 4 days. Like Depacon's a 4 day show, which is a marathon to do 4 days or something like that. Because for us, Adepticon is drive for 2 days, set up for a day,
Yeah.
show for 4 days, break it down, drive it. So it's like a 2 week adventure, you know? um, but oh my God, what is that?
That's the name of the child. Shave or shav or shove, somewhere that's some mental. Basically, what happened is the English came over to Ireland and stole all the vowels and just left the Irish with consonants, and that was it.
I like the Irish spice bag though,
Oh
Then I
yeah,
addition for the
go,
food.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That is
They
good.
figured that one out.
Yeah, it's the only thing they figured out. They never figured out how to get vowels back, but they figured out the spice bag.
Yep.
Um, so does Meredith does she play? Does she paint miniatures, or does she play anything apart from the card games that you have played?
Meredith is a huge video gamer. So like Final Fantasy, old school JRPGs, that kind of thing. She definitely still paints miniatures, although it's more like for Dungeons and Dragons and less like a big army. Just different style. And Meredith's also more into like busts, like kind of more one-off type miniatures. I always like the kind of cohesive feel of a bunch of little dudes that all look the same. And Meredith's kind of more like creative single thing, if that makes sense.
yeah.
And who's the better painter, you or Meredith?
Ooh, probably myself, and mainly it's just from having been doing it for so long. But we do different things. Like Meredith is much better at blending shades together. So like a really nice ombre effect. And my brain just doesn't do that. I do like solid panels of color. So different styles.
I mean, I hope you don't mind me asking. But it sounds like you've got quite a really close connection with your mum and dad. What were they like when you told them that you were giving up your photography to go and do this full time? Were they a bit shocked and apprehensive, or were they just like totally believed in you?
It had proved like TurboDork had proved itself over the last or for the first year or two that like this thing was really kind of growing and becoming something. And my mom has been involved in the business actually since the beginning too. Like she's our webmaster, she paints sample miniatures for us. And so it's also been kind of a family company since the beginning. So it was actually a pretty natural thing where it was like and they've been very, very supportive, very proud of me too, of like, oh well actually this thing that I accidentally started 2 years ago. Now I need to do it full time, but it's going to pay the bills. And they're like, okay, great. Like if you need help, hit us up, but like you're good, you know. So yeah, like my mom's actually teaching some painting classes today at her like retirement community of like how to use our paints on like gift cards and stuff for people. So it's like she's been always involved. They've been I've been very very lucky because I know this is not everybody's family, but they've been very supportive and
Yeah.
uh, understanding of me being a weird artist. I mean, they paid for me to go to art school, right? So they knew I was already going to be kind of a screw up. But at least now it's like, now we've kind of created this brand that, it's getting a little bit of recognition, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah.
I think it's lovely that it's so family based, and you can trace the roots of your company through what you started off doing as a kid with your parents. Because I think for a lot of like hobbyists in general, like if I take myself, my dad's hobbies, apart from maybe like sports, completely different to mine. He doesn't get along with what I do. I don't get along with what he likes to do. He'll go out and stand in the garden for 3 hours a day and pull weeds and plant stuff. And I look at that and think, no, that's not for me. But then he'll look at me as I'm painting something and be like, I can't do that. That'd do my neck in. So it's lovely to hear that you've all got, it's so centric, and all of you are almost in it together from when you first started off to being an adult. It's a really nice story to hear.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
very, very lucky. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, like, this is a like we had Moonhopper Games on about 8 or 9 months ago, and he kind of had the same kind of journey as you, where he's an engineer to trade, and he wanted to reverse engineer something, and then he gave up his engineering job to start his own hobby
Yeah.
stuff. He does his own paints, and he does a lot of his own terrain stuff and that as well. But that all started with him, kind of, and now his wife and his parents were involved in all that. So it's just mad how like it comes back to family, which is brilliant to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm very, very lucky. I know a lot of people that don't have that kind of family situation, and
Yeah.
I won the lottery on that. I will be very honest with that. But yeah, it's been great. My dad, got me into Magic back in, 93 or 94, whenever beta was, and then quickly transitioned into Warhammer because I kind of liked the moving of the stuff around. And, he was a nerd back in the 80s playing all those like hex-based war games from like Panzer Blitz and stuff with all the little card chips. And um like I just kind of grew up in it. I've got a photo of me when I was 2 years old with like an old Apple II computer, like typing on it. Like I've been a nerd since the beginning, and I've been very lucky that it's carried me through to this point. and
Yeah.
and then I get to do it with my family. They're I get to see them every weekend, and we get to play games all the time. And I talk with my mom about paint every day. It's a unique situation. I'm very glad I'm in it.
Yeah, definitely.
So a question that I was going to ask at the start of the show, but I may as well ask it now because I forgot to ask it at the start of the show. Why the name TurboDork? Where does that come from? Because like when we hear the word dork, we think of it something that's derogatory that to somebody who's maybe a bit of a geek. But
Mhm.
is that why, and why put Turbo before it?
So I was gonna try to do miniatures painting streams, and I was gonna be the TurboDork. And I did about two of those streams, and realized I was just painting and never talking to people. There'd just be chat going by. And then I kind of stopped doing that. And it was one of those things where, and I wish I had like a better story for this. It's like I buy a bunch of dumb domain names and I just sit on them forever. TurboDork was one of those, and it was like it felt right because like I don't know if it's ADHD or, whatever tiny bit of autism spectrum, but like I do that thing where I become an expert on something for about 2 weeks, and then I drop it, and then I move on to something else and become an expert for 2 weeks. And so that was kind of be the turbo dork. Was like I was going to be like hyper focused on this one particular technique, and I would be, okay, let's learn slap chop or teach slap chop and stuff, and get hyper focused on it, and then next week I'll do the next thing. um, and it just kind of stuck. It was just like a funny name. Um, it doesn't even seem like it fits anymore, for what we do. It's like something like the army painter makes more sense, right? Like they make paints for painting armies. Turbodor doesn't mean anything, but it also, because it doesn't really mean anything, I think people can kind of put their own values in it too.
Mm.
Like we'll go to Las Vegas Open, and we always have hats with TurboDork and stuff on it. And the number of people that will just wander into the room and be like, "I'm a TurboDork, give me one of those hats," and it's like people identify with it, like it's just a fun thing.
Yeah.
So I'll never change it at this point. I think it's solid, but yeah, there wasn't really a plan behind it. Again, just like our company, we didn't really plan the name out. It just made sense. And then man, you should see. Actually, I think you posted in one of your preview things some of our old bottles. I forgot about my personal Instagram that you guys happened to find. I was like, oh my god, that's like a treasure trove of old school Turbodork. But in there, you know, we had that a horrible logo for about 3 months, and then Meredith found a new designer for us. And they actually designed like the D&D Beyond logo and some stuff for NASA, and they're the ones who did our Turbodork logo, at least the old school one with like the kind of the circle with the lines and stuff behind it, the like Sierra Online style thing. And we've moved on from a little bit of that. Like we're not trying to be as synth wavy or cyberpunky um, like we used to be, but that kind of then set things in place where because we kind of anchored ourselves in this like late 80s early 90s kind of aesthetic, and it's like the turbo and the dork, and everything we do is named dork or turbo now at this point. So it's like, you know, we're kind of working on an airbrush, and I'm going to call it like the Turbo Blaster 5000, you know, stuff like that. So
Better than the Dork
um
Blaster 5000, because that just sounds like it's a weapon more than anything else.
right, yeah. Somebody asked earlier in the chat, like, are we going to have like a grim dork line of paints? And it's like, yeah, like I do I own grim dork?
Get
I
on
don't
it if
remember
you
if I own.
don't.
I might. Yeah, I own. I think I own Glam Dork or Glam Dark, but I don't know if I own Grim Dork. I think my friend Brian owns that. Brian is a RPG creator, and he has a line of games called Vast Grim. And we did like a collaboration paint set with him, and I think he might have gone called that Grim Dork. Anyways, that's a tangent. I don't know where I got on this
Yeah,
rant.
our show is nothing but tangents, and we love it.
I'm like, we need to wrap this up at some point. So I'm going to ask you my final two questions because
Fair.
obviously your time's precious as well. What's been the easiest thing and what's been the hardest thing getting to where you are now?
Ooh. Um, I think the hardest thing for us. Oh, hey Lee. Sorry, I just got distracted. I just saw the chat. I think the hardest thing, honestly, is something that happened to us a couple of years ago, which was so we lived in California. I forgot that places get cold. Um, Acrylic paints, unless you formulate them correctly, will start to basically cure in the bottle if they get frozen. Um, a whole bunch of as we grew and we grew really quickly, a whole bunch of stuff was going out to places like Canada where it was freezing, or Wisconsin, and we were shipping stuff during the winter, and we had a lot of paint go bad, and it
Ooh,
was happening for a while, and we knew why, but we couldn't really fix it because we didn't know what we were doing. Like we were not chemists. And we managed to hang on long enough that I was able to go back to school and learn organic chemistry, and we were able to reformulate. But I think that could have been honestly like a death knell for a company if we'd never fixed that. And all credit to Meredith, but she was really pushing me to do that, which was like, hey, I know it's a strain on our finances, but you need to go, you know, learn and we got to fix this because the easy part was like TurboDork has been sort of self-sustaining and growing on itself, like because of the funny name and because of the color stuff. It's like we haven't really ever had to market. Like we've been very, very lucky that
Yeah.
like
yeah.
it's just been word of mouth, and that almost never happens. And so that's they almost kind of go together, which was like we were doing so well, but because we didn't actually know the back end chemistry of it, we were also kind of failing as we were growing. And so we kind of had to retool, and that's the stuff we came out with 3 years ago now. Um, but it was tough because it was like we had to figure out like, okay, we got to tell everybody their paint might be bad. We've got to replace all that paint at the same time that we're trying to make all this new stuff. And then we want people to buy the new stuff, not just rely upon the stuff we replaced for them for free. So it was a really interesting like transition point for our company. And it was a rough year. But I feel like now that we've kind of gotten through it, you know, we've now learned a lot of lessons and kind of how to, I hate to say it, but be like a business about it and to kind of approach things with certain caution and stuff,
Yeah.
and make sure it works, and do all the due diligence ahead of time too, you know. But that was probably the hardest thing to kind of get through, was that reformulation. The easy part is we make shiny stuff that people want, to some extent. So it's been nice. It's like once people see our product, and things painted with our paints, like it kind of sells itself. And that's been very, very lucky for us.
It's
Yeah.
the one thing. It's the one thing that you never see adverts on. Is miniature paints. It's all through word of mouth and how
Mm.
people interact with each other and tell you, "Oh, this paint's really good." Or like, because where I live in Donegal, we did have a hobby shop, and it was terribly run, absolutely terribly run. And he had something, and he lost it. But he only had like the same two or three TurboDork colours, and it's like, dude, get the rest in. And it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's mad how just through word of mouth that you never see adverts for, like you never see adverts for Games Workshop, Army Painter, yourselves, Vallejo, or AK. It's all
Mm.
just through word of mouth.
Yeah. It's something I'm trying to work on more. I came from an advertising world, and making media that was for advertising. And it's been a bandwidth issue. It's like I really want to make more TurboDork ads. I've got a bunch of ideas for like cool 90s esque, retro ads, but it's just like creating the budget, and then where do you put those
Yeah.
ads and all that kind of stuff. And it's like it's so weird and annoyingly multi-layered. I have a very, very basic, boring meta ad that goes out on Facebook and Instagram, and it's like just a picture of our bottle on a Photoshop background, but it, makes us a couple bucks here and there. But I want to do more of it. Um, you know, it's tough. It's like I think our hobby needs more advertising, but there's no easy route for advertising for like small businesses other
Mm.
than like say meta ads. The best thing for us for growth has just been letting people try our paints. It's sending it out to people to try. um it's being in more hobby stores. Painting is, like you said, it's word of mouth, but it can also be very tribal, where you
Yes.
know the brand that's, if one thing, somebody says one thing bad about a certain brand, it could be a death knell. But it might only be a death knell for them in Austin and not in Bastrop or Dallas or something like that. It's all these different communities. Same things happens with games out here, where it's like Infinity, which I happen to love from Corpus Belli, is huge down in San Antonio, which is about 45-minute drive south of me. Nobody plays it in Austin, right? So it's like, Warhammer 40K is the thing here, but we also have a huge Blood Bowl league. Blood
Mm.
Bowl is not played in San Antonio. It's like it's just kind of where you live and the people you know. For paint too, it's like what is your local store carry is probably what you're going to buy. It's changed a little bit now with the internet, right? But like,
Mm.
still, I think most people kind of expect that, oh crap, I ran out of this color. I should go down to the local store and buy it so I can finish this mini, right? Like that's kind of the buying cycle for most people.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Citadel got so popular, is because it's just everywhere. Even we have a Warhammer store here, right?
Mm.
So it's what people grow up with. It's what people know. It's always available.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a big part of it. We're just trying to be more available everywhere too. But yeah, if like somebody only buys two colors, it's like, well, that's not representative of the line. In
Yeah,
general.
definitely.
Casey, any final questions for me?
Yeah, one last question, I think, is something that I always find really interesting in this sort of world. Um, if you could have a time machine and go back to when you were a little Greg and give yourself
How
one,
little?
let's say teenager. Like, we don't go back to in
Okay.
10 years, like tiny, like when you're 5 years old, you're shaking yourself like, don't do that. That was embarrassing.
Right.
What would you say? What one bit of advice would you give yourself about how you've stumbled into TurboDork and how it's grown and everything?
Hmm. Interesting. I've always, it's tough. It's like those butterfly, theory questions, right? Of
Yeah.
like, what happens if you change something? Will you still end up in the same spot? And I think I would just encourage young Gregory to just stay the course and to be creative and to trust, that like I've been very lucky that I've kind of followed my heart, through everything that I've done, and it's kind of worked out. I I wanted to be a 3D animator. I wanted to go into computer animation. I didn't want to spend the time to make a portfolio for that, so I went into photography because I liked it was more instant.
Mm.
The reality is I kind of went into photography because I wanted to take pictures of pretty girls. And then I kind of grew out of that and learned how to actually be an artist and then kind of made that work for me. And I did that for 15 years and I really enjoyed also helping other artists and helping other photographers. And I built a career out of that too. And that has kind of transitioned into TurboDork, which is kind of a culmination of everything. And I don't I don't think I'd want to let little Greg change anything because I happen to like where I'm at. So,
Mm.
it's one of those weird things like you have to go through those failures to know how not to do something,
Yeah.
you know? And I've been lucky that I've grown from them, and not it hasn't spun me out, Um yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I love those sorts of questions, believe me. And it's a very lame answer to say not change anything. But yeah. But I wouldn't trade where I'm at,
Yeah.
So
Fair,
oh,
fair enough.
I would tell Greg of 2009, who was into Bitcoin at the time, when I built a computer to mine Bitcoins. Bitcoins were worth $2 each, and my computer could have mined a Bitcoin a day, to have actually just mined those fucking Bitcoins and saved them because I would have been a millionaire by accident. I held on to one and sold it for 40,000 to put the down payment on his house. But Greg of 2009, if he had just kept Bitcoin and gotten the crypto craze, that'd be the one thing I'd change. As stupid.
So I've got two final questions from Kitchen, who was let in. She's our resident Italian/German friend of the show. Black or white background for mini pictures? And I know you already answered this, but she's asked again, when will your paints be available in Germany?
Honestly, in a week or two. PK Pro, I know, just paid the customs on our pallet to them right now, so it could be there very, very soon. I don't know who else is carrying it outside of their site. I mean, I know that a bunch of retailers have purchased it, but a lot of the times the distribution chain, they don't tell us who's carrying our paints. We kind of just have to find out down the line. But at least the PK Pro website will have it within a month at least, probably by the end of this month. Black or white background. I personally like black backgrounds. However, it is very hard to do a black background for miniature without a lot of space. And the reason being is miniatures, you're going to have a light source that's very close to it, which means your light source is also very close to your black backdrop. So it's probably not going to go very black because it's getting lit. If you have enough room to have like a black, thing behind your table and you can move your table away from it, and you have some depth, that's a lot easier. That's what we do when we photograph our miniatures. Um, I also really like white because I came from a product photography background and everything was on white. So I don't know. They can work. It depends on the miniature, honestly,
Uh,
to
do
some
you have
extent.
do you have time for two more questions? Because
Yeah,
Eon
I'm
is up.
good.
So he says, what's your favourite painting snack and favourite painting music?
Oh my God. Uh, I often joke with Meredith that my music sounds like computers having sex. I came from a raver background, so most of what I listen to is like EDM, dubstep, pretty much anything that's like recommended to me on YouTube Music. Um, I just love that sort of stuff. I tend to like stuff that doesn't have words either because it kind of just melts into the background. Um, but I don't expect anybody else to listen to my music, if that makes sense. It works for me. Um, in terms of snack, man, I hate to say it, but I love eating like Cheetos and stuff like that. But you can't really eat that while you're eating or while you're painting miniatures, at least without getting it all over your miniature. Um, I think my favorite snack for that sort of stuff is actually like boba, or boba tea, where you're getting some sugar, you're getting some caffeine, and you're getting that texture of the boba. I really like that, and it's clean. But the boba places out here are not what they were in California, sadly.
Oh. I'm going to ask you, do you have any questions for us before we go?
Oh man.
Especially Casey.
Don't ask me anything. I don't know any answers to anything.
No, I don't know. I don't. No, this has just been fun.
Uh,
You guys let me talk about myself for 2 hours, so it's hard to
Cooking is
hard to
back saying,
transition.
Cooking says, use chopsticks. It's my hack to don't get Cheeto fingers.
I used to do that on set when I would when I'd eat Cheetos on set because I didn't want to touch my computer in front of like celebrities or whatever. I'd be eating them with chopsticks, and everybody thought it was super weird, and it was awesome. So I thoroughly agree. Chopstick crew. But yeah,
Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
yeah,
It's
likewise.
been an absolute blast. So, like, we reach out to like companies like yourselves, and we don't expect to get answers back. So to get an answer back from you as quickly as what we did was, that was actually case right away. So, oh, they've emailed me back. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
For people
Yeah.
that don't follow you or don't know where to find you, do you want to just plug yourself now?
Yeah, so we're at TurboDork on Instagram. I think it's at turbodork.com on Facebook. And then turbodork.com is our website. We're also on Amazon. We're kind of in a lot of stores at this point. And then I'm at Greg DiStefano on Instagram, but I haven't posted since the pandemic. So don't follow me there. But you can see my old photography work if you want. But I'm not making any new posts because I am now at TurboDork because this has consumed my life in a good way.
Uh,
So yeah.
we'd love to have you back on, maybe in about a year, and to see what else
Yeah.
you've got coming up to you. Obviously, you've got a few new things coming up this year, so we'd love to maybe to have you back on, and we can discuss how the launch of those new ranges have went for you as well, if you're up for it.
Yeah, that'd be great. That sounds
Cool.
cool.
Brilliant.
Right, guys, that's us for another week. I don't know who we've got next year because I haven't actually asked anybody to come on next week, so we'll get a guest coming on next week. Again, thanks to Greg and TurboDork for giving up their time. Give them a follow and definitely keep an eye out because they get some new things coming up he can't really talk about, but he hinted at, so watch back. Thanks again, folks. See you
Thanks,
later on.
Thanks,
guys.
guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.